Let me ask you something. What happens when a man who built an empire out of control suddenly finds himself in a place where control doesn't exist? And more importantly, what happens when his own family decides they can't afford to let him steer the ship anymore? Because that, right there, is exactly where the Sean Diddy Combs saga begins to twist into something no one was prepared for. Picture this. The man had barely been processed into federal custody, not even a full business week behind those walls. And yet, before his prison ID laminate even cooled, reports say his projected release date was already pushed back. Why? Because according to early internal notes and media outlets covering the situation, Diddy allegedly got caught doing exactly what the feds expect someone like him to try, but not this fast. Multiple outlets, including TMZ and CBS, reported that he was flagged for making an illegal three-way call. Not a subtle one either. The kind that allegedly involved instructions about bringing cash in a paper bag. On top of that, documents reportedly show he was caught drinking contraband alcohol inside the facility. 3 business days. 3. Most people spend their first week just figuring out where the cafeteria line forms. But Diddy, he allegedly jumped straight into the kind of behavior the Bureau of Prisons has a zero-tolerance attitude for. And if you know anything about the feds, you know this. They don't like chaos, they don't like games, and they definitely don't like a repeat offender with a profile this high testing them on day one. And here's where things get even messier, because while all of this is happening behind bars, his kids, yes, the ones who grew up in that glossy world of mansions, music studios, and legacy wealth, are reportedly looking at their father's situation and saying something no one expected. He might not make it out of this the way he thinks. Multiple outlets have claimed that Diddy's children are now consulting attorneys, not to defend him, but allegedly to position themselves to take control of his finances, and not just from him, from his mother. The same mother who has allegedly acted as a gatekeeper, a protector, and according to some sources, the final barrier between Diddy and the wealth he no longer has unrestricted access to. Think about what kind of internal storm it takes for a family to reach that point. The children looking at the fortune that sustains them, the mother holding the reins with a firm grip, and a father whose legal troubles are only escalating, whose public image is collapsing, and whose behavior behind bars is already raising red flags. From the outside, it looks like a family preparing for a future without the man who created the empire they're all standing on. And financially, they may have no choice, because with lawsuits piling up, federal investigations expanding, and civil claims still waiting in line, every dollar is under scrutiny. Every asset has a target on its back. And if we're being honest, here's the blunt truth. If Diddy keeps up the same behavior he reportedly displayed during his first 3 days, he may end up serving more time than anyone initially projected. And if he ever gets out, the conditions of his release will be tight enough that even one wild weekend could send him right back. But that's another story. And trust me, we're just getting started. Here's a sharper question for you. What happens when a fortune big enough to build an empire becomes the very thing that tears the empire apart? Because that's exactly what insiders claim may be unfolding behind the scenes of the Combs family. According to reports circulating in multiple outlets, including a piece from the National Enquirer, people close to Sean Diddy Combs say his family isn't just bracing for drama, they're preparing for a full-scale internal battle over what's estimated to be a $400 million fortune. And whether you believe everything the tabloids say or not, even a fraction of this scenario would be enough to send shockwaves through any family. Sources reportedly told the outlet that Diddy's 7 children are lawyering up, seeking professional guidance to secure control of his finances. Not from the government, not from creditors, but allegedly from his own mother, Janice Combs. She's 85 years old, described as sharp, strong-willed, and fiercely protective of both her son and the legacy she believes she helped build. And from the way insiders describe her, she's not letting go of those reins without a fight. One source even went as far as to claim, this could turn into an all-out war. You've got massive egos. You've got hundreds of millions on the line. It's not just going to get ugly, it's going to get explosive. Let's be honest, when you have a family where fame, fortune, power, and public scrutiny all collide, the tension is already baked in. Add legal troubles, lawsuits, federal investigations, and questionable financial accessibility, and the stakes go from high to volcanic. And then there are the children themselves. Quincy, 34, Justin, 31, Christian, 27, Chance, 19, Jesse and Delilah, 18, and Little Love, the youngest. Each of them grew up in different eras of Diddy's empire, different mothers, different dynamics, different levels of closeness, loyalty, and rivalry. And according to insiders, they all know that what happens over the next few years could determine the future of their lifestyles, their security, and the version of the Combs legacy the world sees next. What makes the situation even more complicated is the emotional baggage intertwined with the legacy. There are long-standing rumors about tensions between the children of Kim Porter and the existence of Love, whose birth reportedly created emotional fractures. These aren't new stories, they've been circulating for years, but they take on new weight now that potential financial control is in question. And then there's another angle floating beneath the surface: the psychological impact of growing up in a household where appearances matter more than stability. Some commentators recently resurfaced studies suggesting that children up to the age of 7 absorb the emotional states of their mothers. Not just what they say, but what they feel. The idea is simple. Children mirror the mother's emotional reality, even when the mother is trying to mask it. In a family as complex as this one, multiple households, multiple relationships, public scrutiny, rumors, and pressure, that psychological truth hits different. Because if the emotional foundation was unstable, those early experiences may now be shaping how these adult children handle crisis, money, and legacy. So when insiders describe what's happening now as a slugfest, it's not just about cash. It's about identity, loyalty, old wounds, new fears, and a family that may be facing its most dangerous chapter yet. And remember, this is all happening while Diddy himself is behind bars, dealing with internal disciplinary issues before his first week was even complete. He's not steering this ship anymore. And the people trying to take the wheel, they may not agree on where it should go next, but this is only the beginning of the storm. Let me hit you with this. What happens when the life you built for your kids becomes the very thing people use to question their loyalty to you? Because in the Combs saga, nothing is simple, nothing is surface level, and absolutely nothing is as it appears online. There's a saying floating around psychologists and child development experts: when a mother goes through emotional turmoil, the child absorbs it too. Up until around age 7, a child mirrors the mother's inner state, not just her words, but her fears, her stress, her instability, and even the smiles she fakes. So when you drag a woman through chaos, the child feels every ripple of that chaos long before they have the language to explain it. And when people claim Diddy was a good father, this is where things get complicated. Maybe some of those kids walked into a courtroom and said he had moments of being supportive, patient, or present. But there's another version, one where Diddy himself admitted this was the first time he had been sober in 25 years. That alone tells you how fractured the family dynamic might have been. A parent can't be fully present while battling something that heavy. Then, in March, another wave of reports surfaced. Headlines suggested that while Diddy was being held without bail at Brooklyn's MDC, the kids were allegedly burning through his money. At first glance, it sounded wild, like a tabloid plot twist, until the social media posts came out and fueled the conversation even more. Quincy, 34, was seen lounging in a tropical getaway, blue waters and umbrella drinks in the background like something off a resort commercial. Christian, 27, was spotted shopping for diamond-encrusted watches, designer jackets, and even riding camels in Mexico with his girlfriend, which had people online asking, wait, they have camels in Mexico? Apparently, yes. Yes, they do. Chance, 19, posted photos of herself horseback riding on a beach, sun setting, ocean behind her, the full luxury vacation aesthetic. Meanwhile, Jesse and Delilah, 18, uploaded matching designer bikini pictures while on a yacht in St. Bart's, looking every bit like the children of a mega celebrity. Now, here's the thing. Does any of that automatically mean they were blowing through his money irresponsibly? Honestly, not really. These kids have always lived online. They've always posted vacations, outfits, hobbies, and lifestyle shots. Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, that's their ecosystem. So the argument that their posts alone prove reckless spending is weak at best. And the twins, they publicly announced they were starting a hoodie line, a clothing brand they were trying to scale. If anything, that sounds more like them building their own lane, not draining their dad's accounts. Although, let's be real, most people believe Diddy was funding it behind the scenes. And maybe he was, because part of Diddy's entire public image was built on the illusion that everything in his world was always business as usual, even when it wasn't. In fact, insiders say one of the last directives he gave his kids before everything collapsed was simple: keep going, keep living, make it look normal. And that's exactly what they did. While he sat in a federal detention center, dealing with disciplinary write-ups and legal chaos. His kids were out in the world maintaining the image he curated, an image he may no longer have the power to protect. The conversations around the Combs family keep circling back to one thing: the lifestyle. Not just the fame, not just the headlines, but the constant motion, the travel, the private jets, the image of a family that always seems to be in flight, figuratively and literally. According to multiple circulating reports, sources claim Diddy's children have been traveling everywhere: Carolina, Hawaii, Texas, Florida, and across the map to Mexico, Italy, India, Ireland, Canada, and St. Martin. And the detail people keep focusing on: allegedly, every single one of those trips happened on Diddy's private jet. And of course, the internet turned that into its own little storm. People joked, somebody checked the jet's trunk. Let me find out they're moving weight. It's the kind of wild speculation social media thrives on, even if there's zero real evidence behind it. But the part that's stuck with insiders is the financial angle. Private jet trips aren't cheap. Fuel alone can run into tens of thousands. Maintenance, crew, landing fees, all of it stacks up fast. One source put it bluntly: Puff pays through the nose every time that thing flies. And here's where the confusion kicks in. These are his kids. Diddy has publicly said many times he would do anything to protect my kids. He wanted them close, wanted them dependent on him, wanted to be the provider, the one who made everything possible. So why is anyone surprised that they're still living exactly the way he raised them to live? And honestly, a lot of these kids do have their own income streams: brand deals, modeling, acting, music, business ventures, and yes, social media platforms like Snapchat, where they earn real money. So the assumption that every dollar spent is automatically coming from Diddy's accounts isn't necessarily accurate. Still, legal experts weighed in with a much more pressing point. While Diddy is doing time, someone must be managing his assets. And according to one attorney specializing in trusts and estates, the smartest move would be for Diddy to give power of attorney to a neutral financial institution, a bank, a third-party administrator, or better yet, transfer the bulk of his assets into a living trust. The attorney explained that when emotions, money, and family collide, conflict is almost guaranteed. A trust or neutral administrator removes the personal tension and prevents conflicts of interest that tear families apart. And this wasn't just general advice. This was reportedly a direct comment from Massachusetts-based lawyer Matthew Kirk. But the moment the conversation shifts to power over the fortune, another name resurfaces: Janice Combs. Sources claim Janice, Diddy's mother, isn't just a bystander in this. She's described as tough, sharp, and deeply protective of both her son and the legacy she believes she helped him build. People who know the family say Janice has been by Diddy's side since the days he was hustling mixtapes out of a car trunk. She raised him and his sister after their father was murdered in 1972. She worked as a model and a teacher's aide, scraping by while holding the family together. And for that reason, insiders insist she won't step aside quietly. Not when it comes to her son, not when it comes to the empire she watched him create, and definitely not when hundreds of millions are in question. As the legal and financial dust continues to swirl around Diddy's situation, the tension between who should control what only keeps growing. And every decision being made now has the potential to reshape the Combs family for years to come. The situation surrounding the Combs family grows heavier the moment the conversation shifts from simple power struggles to long-term control and legacy. And when it comes to legacy, one thing insiders keep repeating is this: anyone thinking they can push Janice Combs out of her son's empire better prepare themselves, because the resistance won't be gentle. It will be fierce, emotional, and deeply rooted. People describe Janice as tough as nails, the kind of woman who survived loss, raised her children alone, and watched her son go from nothing to building a multi-million-dollar empire. But there's another truth lingering in the background: time doesn't sit still for anyone. And if Janice truly holds significant assets or authority in her name, the inevitable question is where all of that goes when time eventually forces a transition. This is where estate planners and financial experts enter the picture. Because if assets are solely in Janice's name, they would eventually have to be transferred to someone, and doing it after someone passes away brings a long list of complications: wills, probate courts, estate taxes, inheritance taxes, wealth taxes. The type of bureaucratic maze most wealthy families try desperately to avoid, which is why some insiders found it interesting that reports are suggesting the solution isn't simply transfer everything to the kids, but instead to move the assets into a living trust. A trust removes emotion from the equation. A trust maintains structure. A trust doesn't argue, doesn't pick favorites, doesn't get pressured, and doesn't get caught in generational power dynamics. But the more revealing piece of this puzzle is the claim, repeated in multiple circles, that Diddy doesn't fully trust his children with full control. And while that may appear confusing on the surface, the deeper context makes it more understandable. From the outside, it seems the kids believe Janice will eventually have no choice but to pass the financial mantle to someone else. If the assets transfer now, while everyone is still here, you avoid estate tax fallout and inheritance complications. So naturally, the kid's position reportedly becomes, just transfer it to us now, Dad, we've got it handled. But from Diddy's perspective, according to insiders, his reaction is more like, you've got what? No, absolutely not. Because here's the part that people closest to him keep insisting on. Diddy has always had a controlling streak when it comes to money, image, and infrastructure. And now, with him behind bars and facing scrutiny, that instinct is reportedly even stronger. Some insiders speculate that his push toward a living trust may be driven not by strategy alone, but by something more personal. The idea that now that he's in prison, he fears everyone will start grabbing at what's left. And that fear turns into control. Control turns into limits. Limits turn into children being put on allowances. There are whispers, unverified but persistent, that Diddy may be planning to restrict spending, structure distributions, and create a system where his kids are no longer handed unlimited access to funds, but instead placed on monitored allowances. Not because he's broke, but because he wants to tighten the reins and push them to stand on their own. And in a family where wealth has always signified stability, identity, and power, that shift would be massive. It would change dynamics. It would cause friction. It may even ignite the very conflict insiders say is already brewing beneath the surface. Because nothing stirs tension faster than a patriarch who suddenly decides the purse strings are closing, right when everyone else thinks they should finally be opening. As the uncertainty around Diddy's financial future grows, one thing becomes clear. The decisions he makes now will determine everything that comes after. When a family empire is this large, transitions can't be left to chance. They either happen deliberately or they happen chaotically. With Janice holding substantial influence and age becoming a decisive factor, the question of who takes over becomes impossible to ignore. Wealth on this scale doesn't simply wait, it accumulates pressure. Taxes, legal exposure, probate complications, all of it sits in the background, ready to explode if the structure isn't airtight. That's why the conversation has shifted toward a living trust, not because it's dramatic, but because it's one of the only options that offers clarity. A trust organizes everything. It avoids long probate battles, minimizes inheritance issues, and makes transitions smoother when the time comes. For a family as high profile as the Combs clan, that kind of structure isn't just smart, it's necessary. But Diddy's situation adds another layer that most families never have to face: legal uncertainty. If future charges or lawsuits arise, anything directly tied to him could be frozen or seized. A trust can offer protection, but not a guarantee. Courts have overridden trusts in the past, especially when the person behind the trust is under federal pressure. And that leads to the real dilemma: who controls it? The trustee isn't just a manager. They control the flow of money, the pace of decisions, and the very direction of the estate. They become the quiet power behind the scenes. Choosing the wrong person risks losing everything. Choosing the right person requires absolute confidence. People familiar with the situation say that's where Diddy hesitates. His children want stability and a clear plan. Janice has decades of loyalty and history. But for the first time in his career, Diddy isn't in a position to command the room or shape the narrative. That loss of control makes the decision even harder. What's certain is this: once a major financial shift starts, it never stops midway. Whoever ends up with authority, a child, an attorney, or a neutral institution, will shape how the Combs empire functions long after the dust settles. Because when a legacy reaches a turning point like this, the next step isn't just about money, it's about identity, authority, and who the family becomes when the person who built the empire can no longer steer it. So here's what I'm wondering. If you were in this family's position, who would you trust to hold everything together? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. Take care, guys.